And now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines and simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Lena. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday indeed. Can I tell you about my weekend?
Sure. I'm curious.
I think it perfectly lines up with our first story today, putting a little bit of damper on things, right? I mean, the rain took some festivities indoors for Children's Day. I was stuck on Jeju-do Island. So, you know, the news updates you saw, I was part of it.
Heard.
And the only perk was I got thinking, I'm going to tell my listeners and they're going to love it.
Share the pain, I guess.
Yeah. It turns out these domestic flights can't land in Gimpo Airport past 10 p.m. So I had to take the long scenic route all the way to Incheon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, but what can you do? I mean, rain comes unwelcomed, and it did put a damper on things. But here's the thing. The show must go on, as they do, and parents also took their kids different places across the country. But let's start out with closer to home. What happened at the presidential office of Cheongwade, the former presidential office? Our first keyword of the day.
Children's Day event.
So President Yoon has invited hundreds of children and parents to Cheongwade for Children's Day celebrations. Can you tell us more about the event?
Right, so the president invited about 360 children and their families to the former presidential compound. They saw various education activities and booths introducing government ministries and agencies. Participants included children from rural areas and in foster care, as well as those with disabilities or from multicultural families. The event also actually reunited Yoon with children he had previously met, including students from a school visit last March. Now, he expressed his excitement about meeting the children in his welcome speech. He thanked parents, teachers, and childcare workers for helping children grow up healthy and bright. He shook hands with each child and shared friendly greetings. He also participated in activities with the children, such as making healthy snacks, experiencing jobs such as pet groomers and traffic and fire safety officers, and creating AI pets as well. They also watched a bubble magic show. He concluded by encouraging the children to stay healthy and expressed his commitment to support them in realizing their dreams. The event closed with Yoon and the children taking a group photo. Also, despite the rain yesterday, many events were held indoors for children to enjoy their day as well, although there were some events that ultimately did have to be cancelled, but still a fun day in, not out, for most of the children yesterday.
My friend who flew in from Australia asked me, what is Children's Day all about? Because what we saw were long lines outside toy stores, even on Jeju Island. And I had to explain long time ago when children's rights were non-existent. That's what we were fighting for. And today, maybe it's about fighting for a different kind of children's right. Their rights to well-being, happiness, the ability to dream, right, in competitive situation, things like that.
Yeah, it's certainly become a more significant day as the years go by, and it's become customary for the president to honor the children's with these Children's Day events as well. It's been happening every year during many administrations, so continuing the tradition, I guess.
All right, so let's move on to our second keyword of the day.
Korean American demands.
So National Assembly Speaker Kim Jin-pyo has met with Korean Americans in LA, promising to actively consider the demands of overseas Korean communities, including a proposal to allow dual citizenships. Let's get the latest.
Right, so the pledge came after James An, the president of the Korean Association in LA, presented several requests to Speaker Kim. These included making it easier to obtain dual citizenship, establishing a permanent system for managing overseas elections, including overseas Koreans as proportional representation candidates in political parties, and improving support for overseas Koreans in emergency situations, and emphasized the ongoing challenges that Koreans face abroad due to nationality issues, and asked for a nationality law that reflects their reality. He also expressed concern that no political parties had nominated any overseas Koreans as candidates in recent elections, and he urged for a clear policy and commitments on the issue. Kim responded positively, noting a broad agreement within the Korean government and parliament on the issue of dual citizenship. He suggested that dual citizenship should be allowed for all overseas Koreans over the age of 40 who are exempt from military military service and vowed to push for more forward-thinking legislation. Now, regarding proportional representation, Kim discussed using it as a special mechanism for those unable to run in district elections, suggesting that political parties should be required to nominate a certain percentage of candidates from among overseas Koreans. And he promised to take the suggestions seriously and to discuss them with relevant committees and agencies when he returns to Korea. He expressed hope that the Overseas Koreans Office, established last year, would actively solve these issues as well through concrete actions, not just words. Now, Kim's visit to LA marks the beginning of a 15-day tour across 4 countries in the Americas, both South and North, including the attendance of the 10th MICTA Speakers Conference in Mexico and visiting Brazil and Argentina before concluding his trip in Washington.
All right, we'll keep close tabs on his 15-day tour across both North and South America. Let's move on to our third keyword of the day.
ADB co-financing.
So the Korean government has announced a significant increase in its co-financing through the Economic Development Cooperation Fund in partnership with the Asian Development Bank. That's ADB, raising the amount from the initial $700 million to $2 billion. That's a pretty hefty increase. What's the latest?
Right, so a near threefold increase, in fact. This decision was confirmed during a meeting between Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok and the head of the ADB, Masatsugu Asakawa. Now, during the meeting, they signed an MOU with the ADB earmarking $2 billion in co-financing for ADB sovereign operations over the next 3 years. $800 million of the amount is earmarked for the co-financing of projects in India. The collaboration will also support public-private partnerships. The MOU also aims to strengthen technical assistance and feasibility study support from the ADB-administered Republic of Korea E-Asia and Knowledge Partnership Fund. The fund was established in 2006 to contribute to poverty reduction in Asia and the Pacific by improving access to information and communications technology and facilitating knowledge sharing and partnerships. Now, Chair stated that this increase in co-financing aims to actively respond to the growing development demands in the digital and green sectors and expressed a commitment to ongoing collaboration with the ADB. He also urged the bank to take an active role in strengthening the supply chain for critical minerals and clean energy technologies in the Asia-Pacific region. And he also expressed hope for an increased presence of Koreans in senior positions within the ADB. Now, Asakawa expressed gratitude for Korea's continued strong collaboration with the ADB. Now, in a separate business session speech, Choi highlighted the vital role of the ADB amidst growing global economic risks due to increased conflicts and geopolitical tensions. He emphasized the need for the bank to lead in addressing complex regional issues like climate response and regional integration as well.
All right, so clear areas of mutual interest. Let's leave it there for now so we can move on to our fourth keyword of the day.
Med meeting minutes.
The health ministry has decided to submit the minutes from a committee meeting which discussed increasing the medical school admission quota by 2,000 students to the court. This came after the Seoul High Court's request for the government to provide a scientific basis for the proposed increase, specifically how they got to the number 2,002.
That's right. So the ministry plans to actually submit these records by Friday. That's because the court actually asked for the documents to be submitted by May 10th. The court has also requested that the implementation of the admission increase be postponed until a decision on an injunction request is made, which is expected by the middle of this month. Now, the legal action was initiated by medical school professors, trainee doctors, and medical students against the ministry. Now, for the government, a failure to submit this data could result in a loss for the government. In the meeting in question, representatives from various sectors, including labour, consumer groups, patient advocates and medical associations and government officials, debated the increase. The involvement of such a diverse group is to ensure that the decision-making process includes not just medical associations, but also those who represent the demand and supply side of healthcare Furthermore, a specific subgroup was created within the committee to focus on strategies for expanding medical manpower. This subgroup has met several times to discuss this policy in detail, and it will be possibly the minutes of that meeting that will be submitted to the court. Of course, meanwhile, if the court rejects the provisional injunction application and agrees with the government's rationale, it may strengthen the momentum for the policy to increase medical school admissions numbers. Conversely, if the court accepts the injunction, judging that the government's grounds are insufficient, of course, pressure from medical groups to hold the increase in the medical school quota is likely to intensify as well. Both sides of that are likely to happen, whether or not the court sides with one side or the other, but still it will create ammunition for either side, depending on which side the court decides to favor.
Okay, so first let's wait and see how the court responds. But that seems to be, it seems like that would take a little bit of time too, but we'll wait and see. Will it further intensify both sides' agendas, like you said, or could we just take a step closer to a middle ground? And do you sense my hesitation?
Well, we've been trying that, or
for weeks on end, right?
I'll say months now, hasn't it? It seems like, but and legal procedures often take a long time as well. So if courts get involved, then of course it will be even more prolonged than it already is.
All right, we'll leave it there for now so we can turn our attention to our final keyword in world news. What's to happen on the Gaza Strip? The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel seems adamant about his stance. Our final keyword of the day.
Ceasefire with strings.
So prospects for a Gaza ceasefire appear slim to none as the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected Hamas's proposal to end the war in exchange for the freeing of hostages. There is an ongoing Hamas leaders meeting with Egyptian and Qatari mediation. What's the latest on this front, Adam?
Right, so the impasse actually came in their second day of truce talks in Cairo. Netanyahu said Israel might pause fighting to release hostages, but will not agree to stop military operations or leave Gaza permanently. So he's basically saying that he's going to be keeping troops there and holding on to the military presence. He argued that allowing Hamas to regain control in Gaza and threaten Israelis nearby is unacceptable. Now, he stated that agreeing to Hamas's demands would be like surrendering, and Israel will fight until all its goals are met. However, he mentioned that Israel is still open to discussing a ceasefire, just not on the terms that Hamas is requesting. Now, Netanyahu's firm stance seems to consider the far-right members of his coalition government who have threatened to leave the coalition if he accepts a ceasefire plan. They can consider it reckless. Now, Hamas's chief criticized Netanyahu for continuing attacks and said the prime minister's actions were harming efforts by other countries to mediate. So, yes, there were talks taking place to try and come up with a possible ceasefire plan, but it turned out to be more of a reiteration of either side's stance. And so, yes, Netanyahu is pretty much standing firm on his position in not decreasing military presence in Gaza. That's despite actually a lot of public backlash as well. There's protests and rallies calling for Netanyahu's resignation because it seems like they're sick and tired of him putting Israeli lives at risk, as well as Palestinian refugees' lives at risk as well, and continuing basically this conflict in the Middle East that has been going on for quite some time now.
Of course, we can't subtract the political angle to it all. It seems like the group representing families of the hostages expressed concerns yesterday that Netanyahu, under pressure from hardline coalition members, has no other choice but to maybe sabotage this possible deal in Cairo. But we'll wait and see. But it seems like that's been a really long process. And as the humanitarian crisis worsens in the Gaza Strip. Thank you very much, Adam, for today's coverage. I'll see you tomorrow.
You're very welcome. Stay dry. See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.